Welcome to Rise Untold, where the stories behind the spotlight come alive. He was never the face of the band, not the one who stood in the front of the stage, not the one whose voice carried through the speakers. But without him, there would be no magic. Benny Andersson, the quiet genius behind ABBA. The man whose fingers on the piano shaped the soundtrack of an entire generation. When the world danced to Dancing Queen, it was Benny who gave them the melody. When hearts shattered to The Winner Takes It All, it was Benny who poured his soul into the chords, and when millions sang along to Mamma Mia, they were singing the language Benny had written for them. But here's the thing. For years, fans wondered, what did it all really mean to him? Was ABBA just another pop band caught in the whirlwind of fame? Or was there something deeper, something he never admitted out loud? At 78 years old, Benny Andersson has finally spoken, and what he revealed confirmed what fans had always felt in their hearts, that ABBA was never just music. It was never just about charts, trophies, or platinum records. It was about creating a lifeline for people. Songs that didn't just entertain, they healed. Think about it. ABBA's music wasn't edgy. It wasn't rebellious like rock. It wasn't experimental like jazz. It was pure, simple, human. It spoke of love and loss, hope and heartbreak, the emotions every single person could recognize. And Benny, he was the architect of that simplicity. His melodies were easy to sing, yet impossible to forget. Songs you heard once, and carried forever. Even now, decades later, those songs haven't aged. Young kids who weren't even born when ABBA ruled the charts sing along to Gimme, Gimme, Gimme. College students dance to Voulez-Vous as if it just came out last week, and families still turn up Fernando on long road trips, their voices mixing with the past. Why? Because Benny and his band didn't just make hits. They made memories. They created songs that became part of people's lives. And when Benny looks back, now he admits it. He always knew. He knew people weren't just dancing. They were holding on to joy, holding on to love, holding on to something bigger than themselves. For a long time, Benny stayed silent about what ABBA meant. Maybe because when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see clearly. But now, at 78, with a lifetime behind him, he can finally say it. The music mattered. More than fame. More than money. More than recognition. It mattered because it gave people hope. And perhaps that's why ABBA never really faded away. Even when the band broke up in the early 1980s, their songs kept playing. Even when new trends tried to bury disco, ABBA's melodies refused to die. Even when critics dismissed them as just a pop act, the people held on. And then, years later, the world came calling again. In 1999, the stage musical Mamma Mia exploded, turning ABBA's songs into a global theater phenomenon. Hollywood followed with movies that reintroduced Benny's melodies to a new generation. And suddenly, teenagers who didn't even know what a vinyl record was were falling in love with ABBA all over again. This is the power Benny now admits he understands. That songs don't belong to the people who write them. They belong to those who need them, and maybe that's the most beautiful part of his legacy. Because Benny Andersson's genius wasn't about ego or spotlight. It was about service, about giving millions a reason to sing, to cry, to dance, to feel alive. At 78, his confirmation feels like closure. For fans who always believed his music carried something bigger, for listeners who always felt his songs understood them, and for Benny himself, a man who can finally look back and accept that what he built was more than pop music. It was a gift, and isn't that the truth about life? The things we create, the kindness we share, the love we give. It outlives us. It travels farther than we ever imagine. Just like Benny's piano notes, still echoing across the decades. So the next time you hear Dancing Queen at a wedding, or The Winner Takes It All, late at night, remember this. It wasn't just music. It was a man's way of telling the world, you are not alone, and if Benny Andersson, the quiet genius of ABBA, can leave behind melodies that still heal people, maybe you too can leave something behind, because fame fades, spotlights dim. But the feelings we create in others, they last forever. This was the story of Benny Andersson. But in truth, it was never just his story. It was ours too. Because every time a song of ABBA played, it didn't only belong to the band, it belonged to the person listening. The girl staring out of her bedroom window, feeling like nobody understood her, until the words of Fernando reminded her she wasn't alone. The man driving home after losing someone he loved, whispering the lyrics of The Winner Takes It All, as if the song knew his pain better than anyone else could. The friends who filled a dance floor, spinning to Voulez-Vous, finding freedom in rhythm, even if only for a night. Benny Andersson may have written the notes, but we lived the stories. That's why, when he finally admitted, at 78, that it was never about him, it felt like a gift, validation of what fans had carried in their hearts for decades. That yes, the music was meant for them, for us, for everyone who needed it. Think about it. Most songs fade after a season. A hit today is forgotten tomorrow, but Benny's melodies, they didn't vanish. They carved themselves into time. How many artists can say their songs have been sung by 3 generations in the same family? A grandmother humming Chiquitita while baking, a mother dancing to Take a Chance on Me in her youth, a daughter blasting Mamma Mia! After school, that is not just music, that is legacy, and Benny didn't chase it. That's the beauty of it. He wasn't obsessed with being remembered. He wasn't trying to be a legend. He was simply creating, following a feeling, pouring something invisible into sound. And somehow, that honesty reached further than ambition ever could. It makes you wonder, what about our lives? How often do we underestimate the little things we give? A kind word that changes someone's day. A small gesture that heals someone's wound. A moment of joy that someone remembers for years. We may not realize it, but like Benny, we are writing songs too. Not in studios or on stages, but in the lives of people around us. Benny Andersson's story is proof that greatness isn't about being loud, it's about being true. And truth has a way of lasting. So maybe that's what his music teaches us now, at this stage of his life. That your voice matters, even if you don't sing. That your story matters, even if you never stand in the spotlight. That your legacy might not be measured in fame, but in how deeply you touched even one person's heart. This was the story of Benny Andersson, a man who finally confirmed what we thought all along, that music, real music, is about giving yourself away. And isn't that what life is too? Giving, loving, leaving behind pieces of yourself that live on in others. If Benny could rise from behind a piano and leave the world melodies that still echo, then maybe you too can rise. Not someday, not later. Now, because the music of your life is already playing, and one day, when people remember you, they won't remember the spotlight. They'll remember the song you left in their hearts.